Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Help Me Help Mama livecast. Doug and Cindy here. We're going to be talking about journaling today. So,
Journaling for
what do
caregivers.
we know about journaling? You journaled.
I journaled. I journaled.
It's, when someone, I think particularly when you're going through like a tough time or, you've got your plate full, you've got all you can do, and now mom or dad's declining and you're also helping take care of them. That's just a lot.
It's you.
And sometimes your journal's the only one to listen to you,
That's
right?
exactly right. And sometimes your journal is the only one you want
Talk to.
to talk to or to communicate with because you don't want to say out loud some of the things you're thinking, but you can write them down. And there are several different things about journaling that we want to talk about. Let's talk about the newsletter first. You had a couple of really good, just some good feedback on that. So
Yeah, well, actually, today's newsletter, and if you don't get our newsletter, go to help.mom, M-O-M/CC, and you can sign up. But today's newsletter wasn't written by me. It was written by one of our readers, at least the bulk of it was. And this was a reader of our newsletter who was responding to one of our prior newsletters. And she talked about how she used uh, her journal to help her get through the rocky path that she traveled down with her parents who had dementia, and you know and she was a primary caregiver,
right.
and it was tough. So her journal was one of her best buddies, I guess.
It was, and it was kind of a verification to mom and dad that some of the things that she wrote in there, she would tell them or show them as she was writing them down, and if they ever questioned her on it, she'd pull it out
Yeah, and
and show them.
she said in there early on, I bought a blank purse-sized journal, and her initial excuse was as if she needed one, to tell her parents, well, I forget things, so I'm going to write it down. If they went to the doctor's appointment, we want to remember what the doctor says, so we're going to write it down.
And that is true.
That
I
is
mean,
true.
so much goes on that you're not going to be able to remember it all, and especially some of the medical details. You do need it down in writing.
But she took it to the next step, and I thought this was ingenious. When mom or dad, started pushing back a little bit, the doctor didn't say that. She'd say, "Well, I wrote it down while we was there. Let's get my journal out and see what that says." And then, she pulled it out. Oh, looky here, doctor said so and so and so, right there. And then
Hmm.
they couldn't argue with it because she had it written down.
There it was, right there in print.
Um, Choosing your battles. She talked about that in here, that and she equated it to teenagers. Teenagers. The, I remember there was a kid in our Sunday school class once. He's a real good kid, but one week he'd show up with like purple hair with a mohawk. Next week, green hair. Next week, orange hair. You know, and his parents, who are our friends, I mean, they chose their battles, and their choice was that's not a battle worth fighting. And I remember a couple years later, I saw this young man at a gas station, and I said, "Where's your mohawk?" And he said, I got tired of it." And now he's a normal, well-adjusted kid. So choosing your battles, what would make a big difference? I mean, this is tough for mom and dad. It's their
It
life.
is.
And,
It
I
is.
think too many kids overreact. I mean, it's their life, it's their independence, right?
Right. But what she did was, she said if it comes to your health or your safety, we're going to go with health and safety over something that you might want to do. So, one example is getting on the ladder to clean the gutters or to change the light bulb. She said, nothing like that. If you fall, it would cost a trip to the ER, probably surgery, then rehab, and I'd have to take off time to work to make sure everything was going good. So instead of doing that, let me come and help change the light bulb, or we'll get someone to clean the gutters. No climbing on ladders. And they agreed because there again, it was in the journal.
And then another thing she pointed out was letting them see how this will affect you. And I think sometimes when we're talking about planning, we may lean too far, toward mom and dad to the detriment of the kids. What does mom want? Let's get it all set up for mom. But it also affects you because you've got a family, you've got a life, you've got a job, you've got stuff going on. And at least in the early stages, now obviously when someone's Alzheimer's or dementia gets more severe, well then this doesn't work anymore. But apparently she had conversations with her mom and dad, let
Hmm.
them know how this affected her.
Yeah. So, how do you journal? Well, you need a pen or a pencil and a journal. What does a journal look
Pretty
like?
basic, right?
Pretty basic. You know, I pulled out a composition notebook. It wasn't anything fancy. It was just a place to take the thoughts out of my head, the thoughts and emotions and things that were going on, and put them down on paper. You can buy a journal, you can buy it online, you can go to the bookstore. Bookstore has lots and lots of journals. It can be blank pages where you can pour out all the thoughts out of your head. So you can draw pictures, you can write one word that brings a lot of things to mind. You can just get it all out of your brain and off your chest. And there it is. Or you can buy a fancy journal that has structured things that you do in the morning, things that you notice during the day, what you feel at night, things that prompt you to write down. Personally, for me and for the people that I've talked to, they like prompts. Too much
Yeah.
structure is not good. I would write down, what can I do today to make my loved one's life better? And think about that after you write it down. And then write, what can I do today to make my life better? Because without you as the caregiver, what's going to happen to your loved one? So you have to take care of them, but you also have to take care of yourself. Um, I recommend writing about the person that you're caring for at least once a week, because you're going to see changes and you're going to forget those changes. There's going to be changes in their pulse ox or their blood pressure or things like that. And you need to write these down. Subtle changes can become very important, and you're gonna forget those. Also, I'd recommend reviewing your journal about once a month, because if you look back a month ago, you were in a different place. What are your writings telling you? Were you angry? Have you worked on that? Were you depressed? Did you feel anxiety, fear? I always felt doubt in my decisions.
I would think you could learn a lot by going back and reviewing your notes from like
Yeah.
a month ago, six
Mm-hmm.
months ago. Like, are you thinking different now than you were then? Probably so. Is your thinking improved for the better or for the worse? What were you doing then that you're not doing now? Or maybe you've learned hopefully you've learned some things in the last 6 months and you're doing things now, handling things in a different way now than you were back then.
Writing in a journal it's beneficial for caregivers. It gives you it gives you me time. Let your loved one take a nap or while they're eating, get your journal and write. Get a little me time and take advantage of that. In your journal, it's not going to say anything back to you, right?
Nope,
It's non-judgmental.
just paper.
It's healing. It's a way to remember. It's For me, I remember writing down something that mom did when I took her to get an x-ray, and it was embarrassing at the time, but every time I read that, I just laugh. It was hilarious. And it also helps you express your feelings and get some of the emotion down on paper and out of your head.
A
It
lot of the
helps.
little details you write down, you would have forgotten. I mean, even now, when you go back and review your journal, what you wrote down
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
you remember the big things, but the little things are
Yeah.
what your mom said or how
Or
she reacted,
did.
you
Yeah.
would have forgotten some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's what adds spice to life, some of that stuff. So, and that's a fringe benefit that family caregiver, the one that's there, has, because it's your life, your experience with your mom or dad in your journal, in your notes, your thoughts, your remembrances, and you're putting them down in your journal for, it helps now, it's cathartic to write things down right now, and it also helps with practical things like doctor's appointments, but it helps later too as you're going back and reviewing it.
does. And it's great to remember those things. So let us know if you guys journal. What do you write? Do you use just a notebook like I did, or do you get a fancy journal? Do you use one with prompts or blank pages? Which one works better for you?
So let us know. Type in your comments below. Just let us know how you journal, why you journal, what you type in general in your
No
journal.
details.
No detail. What you type in general in your journal, and how you've used it for practical purposes. So those are all some things that we can all learn from. And to the writer, the responder that responded to our post and gave us her suggestions for today's newsletter, we're very grateful to you because, gosh, wealth of information here. So if you got today's newsletter and hadn't reviewed it, please do so. It's called Journaling, Helping Those in the In-Between Zone. Thank you for watching today. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. We put up videos periodically, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when we do put one up. And thanks for watching. Have a good day.
And thank you for being a caregiver for your loved one. You're making a huge difference in their life.